Hello and welcome back to another end of weather video. Today we are talking about Winter Storm Uri and the eastern part of this storm. Now we are going to be seeing heavy snow as well as heavy wintry precipitation. That means heavy sleet and heavy freezing rain. If you want to know more about the types of precipitation and why they occur, make sure to go click on Deep Dive Types of Precipitation in the cards above. Now, if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell. Now let's get right on into it. We have plenty of winter storm warnings, those pinks here on the National Weather Service page. We also have plenty of these blues, those winter storm watches. Those are the areas that will be seeing either some freezing rain or some snow, mostly, with this storm. Now, these winter weather advisories are mostly for some light snow, as well as parts of Winter Storm Tabitha, which is currently impacting the northeast. But let's take a look at the NAM real quick. So the NAM has a different take on this storm. It has this being a pretty weak storm going through Texas, and eventually it comes back out into the Gulf, this low pressure right here. Now that low pressure comes back on shore, takes a little bit to strengthen, but once it starts to strengthen, it gets on a roll, starts moving north and east, and you can see here that we get some light freezing drizzle in some areas such as the New York City metro and the Boston metro, and eventually that storm turns over to all rain on the I-95 corridor, and that keeps all the snow very far inland since this low pressure is still in western Pennsylvania. Eventually that low pressure does pop out here to the northeast area right along the coast, very close to the coast, still keeping the I-95 corridor in all rain. So the GFS has a different take on the storm, so we're going to look at that real quick. So the GFS has this storm going south through Texas, but does have this storm a little bit stronger than the NAM did. Takes a little bit longer to get into the Gulf of Mexico, but when it does, you already have that very strong precipitation, very heavy, and its low pressure is still a little bit more developed, and that precipitation stretches all the way up into Canada. Now, this low pressure comes back on shore pretty quickly, and we start to see some very heavy freezing rain moving through parts of Alabama, and eventually all of this heavy precipitation starts to move north and east, still having that freezing drizzle in the northeast, but we have this storm kind of further to the east than the NAM does, and that brings some of those freezing rains as well as some of the snows a little bit closer to the coast until this low pressure pops off the coast. Then it's even closer to the coast and brings those impacts further to the northwest. So we kind of have a storm system here that really doesn't impact many areas once it gets out of this area right here. In terms of the snowfall, it's going to be very far to the west. Now, the European has the exact opposite of this, and it has most of those snow impacts occurring further to the east, especially once you get into the northeast. This low pressure is much further south and east, bringing that heavy freezing rain into play here. At this point, both the NAM and the GFS have heavy rain in some of these areas. Boston, you're seeing heavy snow in this scenario, and that moves off, bringing some snow on the back end, and this is more of our typical nor'easter setup. So let's take a look at the snow totals and ice totals for each of these models. So let's go over here to the NAM and take a look at its total accumulated snowfall. You can see here that most of that snow is further inland in the northeast, as well as some decent snowfall in Texas, as well as through the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. So in Texas and Oklahoma here, you can see 16-17 inches in Oklahoma. Texas, it looks like most of those snow showers are going to be pretty light, but if you're in the interior here, you could see closer to that 6 to 12 inch mark. Now, once you get out into the Mississippi or Ohio River valleys, you're going to be getting a pretty, overall, a very heavy snow, and that'll lead to some 6 to 12 inch amounts here from Louisiana all the way up through Maine. Now, the GFS is a little bit different with that snowfall, so let's take a look at that here, and we're going to be taking a look at that total accumulated snowfall. and we can see right here. So the GFS has this snowfall very far inland, much less snowfall in Texas, but still 17, 18 inches possible. Just, it really leaves out a lot of that Mississippi River and Ohio River Valley snowfall, and that 6 to 12 inch mark starts in Kentucky and goes through Maine, as well as in the Northeast. It has this snow very far inland compared to the other models. The European is the outlier here, and we can see that right here. So the European has a pretty consistent amount of snowfall, and that 6 to 12 inch range stretches from Texas all the way through, including more of the metro areas and eventually into Maine. But we do not see any foot plus amounts here, so we do have a more widespread storm in terms of snowfall, but there is less overall snow in specific places. Now, for the NAM and the GFS, let's take a look at those ice amounts. So here is our total accumulated freezing rain, and the NAM is showing a very significant freezing rain threat here. These darker blues are at least a half an inch of freezing rain. This amount of ice on trees and power lines will be very significant, and you can see that in the Northeast you could see at least a 5/100th of an inch, possibly even a 1/10 of an inch in major population centers, including Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston. The GFS has something very similar with the freezing rain, has it just the east of that snowfall, and we can see here that that freezing rain is much more consolidated into this one line, but still very significant amounts. Could see close to an inch of freezing rain, as well as some significant freezing rain in areas such as Philadelphia, Boston, and New York City. So the European model does not have freezing rain amounts, so we're not going to be looking at that. But overall, we have a very significant snow and freezing rain threat for this storm. Now let's take a look at my predictions for this storm and see how I kind of mixed all these models together. So I took a very general approach here for predicting this storm, since there are a lot of question marks still. This path is very uncertain, and that could lead to some very different snow totals depending on how this storm tracks. So I do have many different areas here, so I'm going to go through them one by one. First up is this blue area. This is where you're going to get that possible heavy snow, or just overall an all snow event. Now, we do have this pink area, this pink-purple color. That's your wintry mess. That means that you're going to be seeing some snow, some sleet, some freezing rain, kind of a mix of all these different types of wintry precipitation. Now we have this red here. That is your freezing rain, very heavy freezing rain. This is the areas that will be seeing primarily freezing rain. Could switch over to some rain, but overall, you're going to be out of that snow risk, but you can still see some wintry precipitation. Now, this orange area in the Northeast, this is your boom or bust category. So you're either going to be seeing very heavy snow and very heavy freezing rain, or you're going to be seeing almost all rain for this storm. Now, here in this yellow color, that is where we could see some severe thunderstorms, and that is very typical for these storms that kind of track through most of the central part of the country. We'll start out in the central part of the country and track to the Northeast. We get some of that Gulf moisture, some Atlantic moisture, and that really stirs up some severe thunderstorms in the Southeast. So that is all I have for this storm. Comments in the comment section down below. What do you think is going to happen with this storm, and who do you think will see the most snowfall from this storm? But that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.